Hey guys, and welcome back to the show. You know who I am. I'm Mom is in Control, Heather Chauvet. And I'm not Mom is in Control. I am the founder of Mom is in Control, your host, Heather Chauvet. And you know this show is all about helping you feel more in control of your life and has absolutely nothing to do with controlling other people. And yes, your life can look messy and chaotic, and you can still feel in control. It's not about perfection, it's about progress. So let's get started. Today, I wanted to talk about the Bell Let's Talk campaign. So if you're a Canadian, you might know what I'm talking about. If you're not, you still might know what I'm talking about. If you go to hashtag Bell Let's Talk, yesterday, January 31st, 2018. This is when I'm recording this. You may be listening to it on a different day. It was Bell Let's Talk. And so the campaign is about bringing awareness to mental health. Mental health, yes. And of course, you need a campaign to do this because nobody wants to talk about the stigma of mental health. And I was actually watching a video clip on the news, and you know, there's a lot of censorship on the news. It's not like podcasts. And at the end, you know, it was beautiful because they were featuring a local campaign and how much money they've raised for mental health services in our city. And at the end, the guy goes, you know, I was talking to this woman and she was so beautiful. And, you know, she had everything going for her. You would never know she struggles with mental health or anxiety or whatever he was saying. And I had to laugh because this is the reality. We can put a mask on anything. And I talk to a lot of you. I receive your emails. I work with you. And, you know, you don't need to, mental health is a real thing, just like physical health and emotional health and spiritual health. And yet we don't take it serious. We see people struggling and we go, what's wrong with them? Why can't they pull up their boots? Why can't they put their granny panties on and pull up their big girl pants and say, suck it up? It's not about sucking it up. It's about asking for help. And the more we resist asking for help, the worse the problem gets. And there's a lot of stigma and shame and guilt around saying, hey, can you help me? I'm struggling. And it could be something from struggling as like, I can't do it all anymore, or I don't understand my children. I don't understand how to help them. And there's nothing worse than seeing your child struggling with a mental health issue and you feeling completely helpless, even when you are asking for help. So this is my talk on destigmatizing mental health. I wanted to share a story with you. And yesterday I was being interviewed for a magazine, and the gentleman was asking me my story, and he said, just tell me as much as you want to tell me. Don't worry about, sharing. You don't have to be extremely vulnerable. It's okay. And so I said, all right. And so I just laid it all out. And he looked at me, he goes, wow, thank you so much for being so courageous and sharing your story. And I thought, this is what I do for a living, is share my story and allow people to learn from my story and hopefully be inspired to take action and ask for help in their own life. So I told him, and he looked at me like I had 10 heads. And I said, this is part of the problem, that being vulnerable is rare. And it seems to be, a secret, and people don't want to talk about it. So I encourage you to tell more of your story. And if you don't know who to tell, because there's a lot of shame or judgment, or, you're really struggling and you don't know who to talk to, I want to know your story. So send it in at support@heatherchauvet.com. And maybe I can use my voice and my platform to share your story. And I don't need to use your name, but it is beautiful to know that you're not alone. So send it to me, support@heatherchauvet.com. So I wanted to tell a story today about when I was in grade 9. So how old are you in grade 9? 14, 15? I don't know. 14, 15-ish. And 16, I don't know. I remember this feeling of just depression. And when you are that young, you don't know what it is unless you've been educated on it. You just know how you feel and you feel like shit. And so what does a teenager do? They try to numb themselves. And I wasn't into drugs or alcohol. That wasn't my go-to method of choice. My go-to method of choice was sleep. And so I would sleep all the time. I would sleep in school. I wouldn't go to school. I would call the school, and my mom was a single parent. And so she would go to school or go to work. And I was expected to get myself up and go to school on time. And so I wouldn't go to school and I would sleep all day. And I knew exactly what time I needed to get it up before my mom came home. So I would call the school and I would pretend I was my mother and say, hello, this is Heather's mom, blah, blah, blah. And sometimes I would get caught. Sometimes I wouldn't get caught. And I remember going into the vice principal's office and using the single mom card and being like, oh, my mom is just so busy and struggling. And I had a doctor's appointment and she blah, blah, blah. And I knew how to pull at his heartstrings because I didn't know his backstory, but he took me under his wing and, would totally let me get away with it. So I would get away with sleeping for weeks on end at school. Like I would legit miss a whole week of school and my friends would be like, where were you? And I wouldn't talk to my friends and nobody really, they cared, but they didn't know how to help me. And, I would go to a therapist and I would talk to the therapist. And when you're really good at talking your way out of things, it's easy to slide under the radar. When you tell a therapist what they want to hear and they're not calling you out on their shit, on your shit, it's very easy to go unnoticed. So I would talk to all of these people. Some people are like, there's something up with Heather. So I would talk to all of these people and I would just coast through. And I remember this is around the time when I wanted to commit suicide, and I attempted it by snorting some pills. And my intention was to have a drug overdose. I didn't even know what I was taking. I just literally put like a handful of pills in my mouth and swallowed them. And then I crushed one and snorted it. And I remember feeling numb from top of my head to the tips of my toes. And I did this during the day while my mother was at work. I actually had people over because it was during exam time. And I loved it. I wasn't addicted to it. I just loved it because I was numb, but it still scared me because I thought I took all of these pills. And to this day, I can't even tell you what type of pills I took because I don't remember. I don't know. And I guarantee you it wasn't a narcotic or anything. It was probably like Tylenol. And I don't even know if you can overdose on that. But I didn't really have any side effects or anything. But I remember taking the pills and thinking to myself, I don't want to die. I literally don't want to die. So why am I doing this? And the truth was I wanted the pain to go away. And I didn't know how to get rid of the pain. And I don't want to say I didn't know how to get rid of the pain because I wasn't taught to get rid of the pain and my parents didn't give me the resources that I needed. Because being a parent now, understanding, and working with women and working with families, understanding that it's not about us as the parents. It's not our responsibility to give our children the tools and the strategies. Yes, we can do this, but I see a lot of people doing this to a fault where they're overcompensating, going, oh my gosh, if anything ever happened to my child, it's my fault. But what I had to realize, and as an adult coming to realize, is it's not so much about equipping our children with these tools. It's about having these tools ourselves as adults so that our children are watching us and observing us. And one of those tools is being able to talk about our struggles. Because if I can openly tell this story to my child now, it doesn't mean that he's going to do this. It means he knows he's not alone, and that if he ever felt that way, he can have me as a safe place to come to. Whether he chooses to talk to me about it or not is totally up to him. But also being aware of what are the signs and symptoms, right? If my child is chronically fatigued and always sleeping, and a lot of the feedback that I receive from parents is my child is not motivated, they're lazy. Your child is not lazy, even if you perceive them to be lazy because that's your belief system. The truth is, your child lacks motivation because they lack connection to feeling alive and in the world. And as you know, as an adult, that's a lot of emotion to carry. So when I look back and I go, I am so far removed from that person that I was who, ingested those pills, literally just trying to numb myself. If I had maybe a different genetic disposition or personality, that probably would have become a chronic thing, and I would have became an addict to it. But instead I chose my drug of choice to be sleep. And so I just tried to sleep off the discomfort and sleep off the pain because I didn't know how to do this. And so slowly, it wasn't until I became a parent myself did I realize that this was actually a problem, because nobody talked to me about this. And I went to therapy for years. Chronic fatigue is a diagnosis, like fibromyalgia, like chronic fatigue syndrome. The Western medicine has diagnosed it as a chronic fatigue syndrome. Like, are you fucking kidding me? Did you ever think there is a disconnect to self, disconnect to what it means to feel alive? And so when I'm watching this Bell Let's Talk campaign, I'm like, please, we need to have these conversations more than once a year, where you can hold up a sign and say, listen, and have those conversations. Because there's a huge gap between saying, let's talk. Let's talk about what? It's fucking terrifying to have those big emotions rushing through your body and feeling like you just want to get rid of them. On a daily basis, I get emails from people. Actually, somebody just sent me a private Facebook message the other day talking about childhood suicide and how an 8-year-old completed suicide. They call it completed suicide. It's not attempted. It's not committed. You didn't commit a crime. You completed it. It is, once and for all. There's no turning back. 10 years old. And I received messages from people saying that their child as young as 8 years old is making statements of, I want to kill myself, and not even knowing what this means. But the truth is, it's about, I don't want to feel like this. So that is my Bell Let's Talk story for the day. And I hate to be a Debbie Downer, but I feel like we need to have these conversations. And this is why feeling in alignment in your life and doing the deep work and saying no to other people and saying, you know what, societal expectations of who I need to be as a woman and a mother and a career person is extremely unrealistic. And therefore, I am saying no, and I'm taking back control of how I want to feel in my life. So I just want to let you know that you are not alone. And that's kind of my message for today. If you feel really inspired and you feel alone and you haven't told anybody your story, I want to hear your story. It's safe with me. So send it to support@heatherchauvet.com. And if you're ready to get a little ass kicking this year and feel more in alignment with the life that you truly crave, and investing in a mentor is something that you have been thinking about, but something you're on the fence about, or you're not really sure, you don't even know how that happens or what that looks like, but you desire to feel more connected to yourself, to your children, to make a bigger impact in the world, and to get your shit together, then head on over to momisincontrol.com. Fill out the application. And even if you don't think you qualify, I want to read your application and I will personally respond and I'll give you the next steps. You guys are so awesome. Thank you for being here. And as always, thank you for being you.